So you finally bought your first action camera. Good job, but your footage looks like this. It's not the worst thing in the world, but why doesn't it look like this? What you're missing is an ND filter. Before we can understand why ND filters are so important, we first need to go over the 180-degree shutter rule. This rule states that your shutter speed should be at least double your frame rate. So, if you're recording at 24 frames per second, your shutter speed should be about 1/50 or more. If you're recording at 30 frames per second, your shutter speed should be about 1/60, and so on and so forth. But what is shutter speed? And why should it be double your frame rate? It's exactly as it sounds. It's the speed at which the shutter of your camera closes. A slower shutter speed allows more light to enter your camera, allowing for the possibility of overexposure, like this. So you're probably wondering, if a slower shutter speed can cause overexposure, can't I just make the shutter speed quicker to lower the exposure? Well, yes, you could, but if you're trying to get that action emotion blur effect, that won't do. Your footage is going to look bland, boring, and unexciting to anybody watching. The motion blur really helps to show viewers that you are moving very quickly and that you're actually on a motorcycle. Without using the shutter speed rule, it'll look like you're going very slow. This is what my footage looks like when I enabled automatic shutter speed. Notice the lack of motion blur. No one wants to watch this. All of my previous videos before this one were created using automatic shutter speed. In comparison, this is some footage that uses the 180-degree rule. Notice the motion blur on the side. The footage looks so much more action-packed. You look like you're going faster. It's exciting. People will want to watch this. Now here's both side by side so you can really tell the difference. Now that we've established the importance of the 180-degree rule, how do we keep our exposure at a tolerable level while still following this rule? If I keep my exposure at double my frame rate, won't there be too much light entering? Well, that's where ND filters come into play. Essentially, ND filters are used to reduce the amount of light entering the camera, allowing you to follow that shutter speed rule without overexposing your video. ND filters come at varying levels, each allowing a different amount of light to enter. There are even some filters that have variable levels, allowing you to toggle between different levels without having to entirely switch out the filter. These are the ND filters that I use for my DJI Osmo Action 4. This 3-pack includes an ND8, ND16, and ND32 filter. An ND2 filter allows about 50% less light to enter than a camera without an ND filter. Each subsequent doubling of the number keeps producing another 50% of the previous. You should pick the ND filter you use based on the lighting conditions of the day. For very bright and sunny days, you should probably pick something like an ND16 or even an ND32. On cloudy days, an ND8 should serve you fine. Now, let's keep in mind, I am just talking about action cameras. Different cameras have different levels of exposure. For example, if I were to be using my ZV-E10 without an ND filter and I had my aperture turned all the way down, the video would be overexposed, even using like an ND16 or ND32 on a bright and sunny day. I would probably need something even higher than that. I want to really emphasize that I'm mostly just talking about action cameras. Here's another comparison of footage with an ND filter and footage without an ND filter, with both being at the 1/60th shutter speed rule. As you can see, the footage without the ND filter is very overexposed, you can't see a thing, where the footage with the ND filter has way better lighting. Hopefully you better understand the importance of using ND filters when recording your rides. The ND filters I use are linked below, along with the rest of my video and audio equipment. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.